Ouattara, first elected in 2010 and then re-elected in 2015, had kept Ivorians guessing over his political future, saying last year that he could run again if his traditional rivals were candidates. October's presidential election looms as a major challenge for the West African country after its 2010 vote ended in violence between political rivals that killed 3,000 people.
Ivory Coast President Alassane Ouattara will not stand for re-election in October, ending speculation about his future ahead of a highly anticipated vote, but leaving the presidential race wide open.
I wish to announce solemnly that I have decided not to be candidate at the presidential election and to transfer power to a young generation.
Ouattara had previously said he'd run if two of his longtime political rivals were candidates, defying opponents who say the Constitution doesn't give him the right to seek a third term. Now, leaders from across the political spectrum are welcoming his decision, which bucks a trend from several other African leaders who've sought to circumvent term limits in order to stay in power. Ouattara's two main rivals, former Presidents Laurent Gbagbo and Henri Konan-Bédié, have not yet said if they'll be candidates in October. Gbagbo refused to concede defeat when Ouattara was first elected president in 2010, which sparked the brief civil war in which 3,000 people died. Ouattara's ally in that conflict was current presidential candidate and former rebel leader Guillaume Soro, but the pair later fell out. And political tensions have increased in recent months after the government issued an arrest warrant for Soro. Ouattara is widely expected to back his prime minister, Amadou Gon Coulibaly, for president. However, some fear Gon Coulibaly lacks the charisma to run an effective race, and Ouattara's move is likely to spark a succession battle within his own coalition.
For more on the story, we are now joined live in studio by Channel Africa producer and African Affairs Analyst, Izak Khomo. Dada Izak, good evening and thank you for joining us on The Globe.
Good evening to our listeners.
Now, this must be good news for Guillaume Soro, the former rebel leader and a candidate to next year's presidential election. We know he is facing life in prison over an alleged coup plot.
Yeah, I don't know how that could be good news because I mean to say he's living in exile. He's in Spain, whereby there is an arrest warrant out for him saying that he's guilty of endangering the security of Ivory Coast and also of money laundering. So there you are, you find that he could not return, he could not go to France, so he's in Spain. Now I do not know how that could be good news.
Now, are we really going to see, President Ouattara not really stepping down? Is he being genuine this time around with regards to him running for re-election?
Well, Ouattara's rule and Ouattara's presidency is very controversial because basically he came in as a rebel leader, although people say that he went through elections. But I mean to say that he came in after an attempted coup to overthrow any constitutionally elected government of Gbagbo. And with time and with intervention of France and other things, they came to an agreement that they actually have those elections, which they did have. Yeah, and not only that, you find that the rebel forces were infused into the army. But reports have come out saying that the rebellion was actually sort of aided and abetted by France. And so he came to be where he is. So, I mean, the funny thing is this, that in the elections, I'm not going to talk about Gbagbo, but with his group which came out, there was a rebel leader, the young man who was in charge of the youth league, Guillaume Soro at that time, and who actually led the rebel forces. Yes, he was a very big ally, and he was actually responsible for bringing Ouattara into power. And then in the elections, in the second round of the elections, he had the support of Henri Konan, Henri Konan-Bédié. Now, the agreement between Henri Konan-Bédié and Ouattara was this, that Ouattara, after having support of Henri Konan, would actually support Bédié when his term is over, in the sense that BDA actually sort of gets on to vie for the presidency. But you find that with that coalition government, it fell apart. Yeah, they fell off with Soro, and after that, the man actually started a new party, and he just sort of sidelined Henry Konan BDA. And BDA joining to Ouattara, it was actually a blackmail, because just before the second round of the elections, France passed a very, very funny law, which was supported by many people. It said that France is going to, it passed a law whereby France gave themselves the power to take hold of any property of any leader, African leader in France, whose property was gained through corruption. And BDA, when he was prime minister, he actually sort of privatized a lot of industries and interest to himself. And all the thing, his profits and his companies were in France. So under that blackmail, he actually went and joined the French candidate. But you find that Ouattara actually sort of went round him. So Ouattara, he had his people who supported him, but just pushed them aside.
Now, Guillaume Soro retains loyalty of many of, the former rebel commanders who hold senior positions in the army. As things stand, does this pose a serious security threat?
Well, I would not say that he has got a number of militiamen who have been fused into the army, who are loyal to him. But I don't think there will be a threat to the security of Ivory Coast, because basically the security of Ivory Coast it's guaranteed by the French. In these guys, if they try to come and overthrow or come and interfere, the French will just come and put them down. Yeah, Guillaume Soro basically is a northerner. Yeah, Guillaume Soro is a northerner. Ouattara is a man of, he's not a northerner per se, but his ancestry is from people outside the Ivory Coast. See, that was the thing which actually gave him a lot of trouble, under the rule of Ivory whatever, something like that, which means that people have got to be Ivorians. Yeah, really, not just born Ivorians, but of Ivorian ancestry. And people actually accused Gbagbo for passing that law. That law was not passed by Gbagbo.
So who passed the law?
It was Henry Konan BDA when he was president. It was not Gbagbo. That law was there. Gbagbo found it there. Yeah, and that's the thing which actually caused problems. But you find that Soro is a northerner. Gbagbo can say that he's a northerner because he had his support from the north, and basically it was sectarian, being a Muslim. Yeah, and right now I would say that Gbagbo his candidate is Coulibaly Amadou. Yeah, and he's a northerner. But then you find that the northern combined is got a split in terms of Soro. So that is the situation of Ivory Coast. They've neutralized all opposition. But then the northerners themselves, there's a slight split in them. Yeah.
Now, let's speak about, the reasons or the ambitions of President Ouattara's extension of term. Why did he want the extension of term?
Well, that is an insecurity. Basically, when he talked about extension of terms, it was actually to keep power not in himself, but in that cabal. Yeah, and that cabal, it's a French-related cabal. Yeah, and he wanted to retain power within that cabal. So he actually proposed changing of the constitution, which has not been changed, by the way.
But now, what prompted him to sort of abandon his ambitions? Why now? Why the change of heart?
Well, if he changed the constitution, that would actually sort of brought a lot of problems in the country. Yeah, there's a lot of problems. Like now, there's a very big problem with Gbagbo. Yeah, Gbagbo is a dark horse, although he's in Brussels. Yeah, at least he's in Brussels. Yeah, we're waiting his appeal. Not his appeal, but the appeal of ICC. But the Ouattara's government has said it point blank that they do not want Ouattara in the country, because Ouattara coming in the country will destabilize the country.
They don't want Gbagbo to come to the country.
Yes, exactly. They don't want Gbagbo, sorry about that. They don't want Gbagbo to come to the country. Because Gbagbo's got a lot of this thing, grassroots support. And if Gbagbo comes to the country, I mean, to say that he will just sweep, if he stands or even if he doesn't stand, the person he supports could easily take over power. He's very popular. Gbagbo is very popular.
Now, in Ouattara's ruling party, do they have somebody to replace him within the ranks of the party?
Well, within the ranks of the party, Ouattara has actually identified Amadou Coulibaly, to actually run for presidency. So he's a northerner, so I do not know what is going to happen, but I do not know if he's got the support. But basically, the opposition in Côte d'Ivoire or Ivory Coast, it has been fragmented. Because even Gbagbo's party, unfortunately, it has fragmented. His wife, Celine, is having one faction, and other people having other factions. And that is a sad thing, you know. At least that's what people say. But
if he does come back to the country, do you think that they'd all come back as to be one?
Oh, yes. If he comes back and says that is a person, he could either, the whole party would just, people would coalesce around whoever he points his finger to.
Now, the current climate in the Ivory Coast, does it speak of some serious underlying issues that need some serious attention?
Definitely. I mean to say that the democracy of Ivory Coast, you know, it is actually doubted it as a democracy. The mere fact that you find that the opposition, Gbagbo's party, it has been nullified, you know. People have been taken to court, people have gone into exile, others have been jailed, under very funny charges and situations. Yet you find that with all these charges, which are human rights abuses, war crimes, but most of the war crimes were perpetrated by Guam Soros people. The fight was started by Guam Soros. Most of the killings, 75% of the killings were killings which were done by Ouattara forces or Guam Soros forces. And they say that Gbagbo did not accept the results. No, Gbagbo did not say that he did not accept the results. Gbagbo wanted a recount because when it became obvious that there were more votes than registered voters in certain places in the north. So he wanted verification. And the United Nations put it aside, Ban Ki-moon. But he says, no, let's verify. If he does not verify, the constitution of the country says that those votes have got to be taken out. That was what Gbagbo was saying. But then he said that, he did not want to accept the results. But in the end, he accepted the results, but it was too late.
Now, when you speak of the United Nations and Ban Ki-moon setting that those vote results or the call for recount, there are suggestions that the Ivory Coast is basically, there's a lot of interference from Western powers. You mentioned France earlier. You know, how, so far, in terms of the sponsoring of the opposition leader, Guillaume Soro, is there some truth to the allegations? You spoke of France, now you've just mentioned the United Nations. What exactly
the United Nations did not play the role that they're supposed to play, because the elections were held under the auspices of the United Nations. Now, when the man says that these elections was foul play, the United Nations should have actually taken the thing up. And the elections were held under the laws and constitution of the Ivory Coast. But everything was in the hands of the United Nations, and the United Nations actually pushed aside. In fact, Ban Ki-moon said had a very racist statement, saying that African leaders don't want to always come up and question elections. Why don't they accept the results of the election? But there was a genuine case, But I mean to say, let's put that aside, okay, the United Nations did a good job. But I mean the French, the whole rebellion against Gbagbo's government, that thing there, it was aided and abetted by the French. I mean to say that there are reports, that even Guillaume Soros forces, the rebel army, they were getting their arms from Bulgaria via Burkina Faso. But the people who picked up the bill, it was France. It's a well-known thing. French were paying for those arms. French sort of paid for the things. And the French actually went and destroyed. They attacked the Ivorian official army. They actually sort of blasted their helicopters, helicopter gunships. So just to weaken them. Now, France was not a neutral partner in that.
So what happens now? Who do you see as the next best Ivorian to be elected, for this coming vote? And the influence of France?
Yeah, the opposition is weak, it's divided. And as you can see, Koulibaly is going to stand. He's going to be, under the present circumstances, he's going to be elected. There's no way out that he cannot be elected. But if the appeal is heard and Gbagbo wins his appeal and he flies into Ivory Coast, things will be upside down. And there have been reports from Ivory Coast, it's not official, but we've got them. They're saying that if Gbagbo gets there, the Ivorian government is going to open a case of war crimes against him, local crimes and actually try him for intimidation and things like that.
But do they have a case against him?
Well, no, these are trapped-up cases. I mean, they had a case against his wife, and his wife, Salim, she was jailed for how many years? She came out. She came out and she was given amnesty. That was after the ICC said, no, if this was a war crime, they should take her to The Hague. She should be tried at The Hague. So basically, they would do anything. I mean, to actually put him in jail because, again, when he was released after winning his case, Ivory Coast contested that, said the man is a flight risk, he should not be released. And people actually are looking at the ICC with two very bad eyes, in the sense that they're actually delaying the appeal case.
Why would they be delaying the appeal case?
They wanted to drag on until when the election come in, after the elections. I think there is a D-Day from which you've got to, candidacy has got to be declared. Once that case date is come and gone, that's when the case will go forward. There's a strong belief about that. And that is it. That is it. And
the Ivorians themselves, with all this that's happening, that's taking place, some unexpected announcements and, the waiting in anticipation to hear whether Gbagbo will be, released or, exonerated. What does this do for the people on the ground?
People on the ground, his supporters say that the case should be heard and the man should be released unconditionally. And the ICC has come up with a very, very, very funny appeal. They want a retrial. What for? I do not know. I mean to say that before the trial, there was a pre-trial. There were two waves of pre-trial. In the first wave of pre-trial, the judges said that there's no case. They had no case. So the ICC went back, the prosecution went back, they came with a second thing. When they looked at it, there was nothing. They came the third time, they said, okay, then the case can start. But when the case started, I mean to say all witnesses, prosecution witnesses, under cross-examination, they actually contradicted themselves. They all contradicted themselves. So Gbagbo's defense team says, the counsel says, now, where is the trial? Where is the evidence showing that Gbagbo actually sort of perpetrated this war crime? I see that's where the case was. And once that was there, when the Gbagbo's case had to start, the ICC wanted to bring in more witnesses. They said, no, time bad. But now when the verdict was given, the chap was released, there's no case, now they want to, they've appealed. But in the appeal, they're also saying that, no, we want a retrial to get in more witnesses. So basically, the ICC is fishing for a case, and it's also now fishing for a judgment. A guilty judgment. They couldn't get it the first time, they want a second time. So that is basically, it's politicized. The ICC is on trial, basically. Unfortunately, the ICC is on trial and it's guilty of political meddling.
Always a pleasure chatting to you. Let's leave it there for now.
Thanks for having me.
That's Channel Africa producer and African Affairs Analyst Izak Khomo joining us live in studio. Time now for a quick break. More news when we return.